Welcome to Arts for the Health of It, a podcast where you will discover creative ways to improve your health and well-being. Someone may have told you that art isn't for you, but they were wrong. Anyone can create arts for the health of it. No talent or experience necessary.
I'm just a little songbird, try to fly my way homeward with the melody, and I make the beat. Don't know where it'll take me, cause when I'm in the dark of night, I sing my way back to the light. Come along with me and your heart will see that a song changes everything. Oh, oh, oh.
Hi friends, welcome to Arts for the Health of It. I am your host, Richard Wilmore. This is the main host, Winnie the cat.
Winnie the cat is with us today. I'm your co-host, Constanza Rader. And whether you're in a professional creative field or not, I think we all know what it feels like to feel blocked, where your creative ideas aren't flowing, you just feel stuck. And we had the pleasure of talking with Jeff Leisawitz, and he has a book out called Warning. Not effing around. The no bullshit guide for getting your creative dreams off the ground. Jeff is a creative himself. He has had an illustrious career in so many areas, and now he helps other creatives get unstuck. And he shares a fountain of wisdom in this episode, and we can't wait for you to hear it.
It was really a full disclosure. I actually met with him after we talked to him, and I was talking to him about some different things that I felt stuck in, and it was sort of like a mini therapy session. But it was really nice and eye-opening, and really proved to me how great of a coach he is. It was really fun to talk to him for a little while that I did after the interview, because I had fun with him during the interview. So I was like, all right, well, I'll continue this conversation.
And he's doing a workshop for us later in June.
Yes. So fall in love with him during this episode, and then go to our website, heartsneedart.org, to sign up for that workshop and talk one-on-one with him. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah.
He is a life coach for heart-centered creative types, and he burns with a mission to inspire and teach writers, artists, songwriters, musicians, filmmakers, solopreneurs, arts organizations, and every other human with a heartbeat to amp up their vision, tap into their potential, and shine in the world. I love all of that. That's why we invited him on. So here is Jeff Leisawitz.
Nice.
I love that you burn with a mission to inspire and teach writers, artists, songwriters, musicians, filmmakers, arts organization, and anybody with a heartbeat to amp up their vision, tap into their potential, and shine in the world. I love that.
It's true. I love it too. That's why I do it. So
that works out well.
You wrote it,
works
so it works
well.
out well. Yes. Where did you grow up, first of all?
Yeah, I grew up in Pennsylvania, in Reading, Pennsylvania, which is, if you consult your Monopoly board, you'll see the Reading Railroad.
Oh.
Right. So that was that big railroad town back in the day. So yeah, grew up there, and eventually made it to LA, where I finished college, and then up to Seattle, where I've been for a long, long time.
Does that at all? I know the weather in Seattle can be a little sketchy sometimes and not super bright. Like I need bright sun. That's what motivates me to be creative. Does that affect you at all?
Well, certainly the weather affects us in different ways, for sure. I sort of feel like there's more energy with the sun, but there's more introspection with the overcast. Yeah. And the introspection, of course, is good for creativity, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
I love your tagline. You talk about, at its best, creativity is a way for us to be seen, expressed, and connected. And you talk also about using creativity and art to heal. And I'd love to hear a little bit about how you came to that. You know, that's such a wonderful statement that, of course, we resonate with. But I'd love if you could expand on that.
Well, I came to it through living my life as a creative, right? Beginning with, the teenager who wanted to be the rock star. When I was 15 years old, I declared to my parents, I want to, what do you want to be when you grow up? Rock star.
Yes.
You can do anything with your life. Rock star. And they're like, oh God, no, please, no. So, I think some artists, creatives, especially maybe musicians and maybe actors or something, there's this component of ego, of fame and fortune, that kind of thing. But the truth is, after numerous successes and failures in my life, I realized that at its core, creativity at its best is a way for us to be seen, expressed, and connected. So what does that mean? To be seen. Well, in our normal lives, I feel like people are generally not very well seen. I mean, on the top level, it's like you drive down the freeway, obviously you're basically anonymous, or walking down the street, same kind of thing. Internet, basically the same deal. There's just infinite people, floating around out there. So then you've got your next level. And the next level is, your closer people. So maybe this is people you work with, your acquaintances, things like that. And maybe they see you and get you and kind of understand you, but probably not that much. And they probably really don't care that much as well. And then you've got your real close people, and that's your family and your good friends and your partners or whatever. And, hopefully they get you, they understand you, they see you. But in my experience, they generally don't see all of you, right? So that's the seen part. So what does expressed mean? Well, in my definition, expressed is really just moving from the potential to the actual. So an example for this is like, the dancer who knows all the moves, right? She's an awesome dancer, but on this Saturday night, she's sitting in the corner, the disco balls whirling around. She is not expressed in that moment. You get up there and you shake your moneymaker, and bam, you're expressed. It's like the poet. You can have a pile of poems on your desk, but you're not really expressed as a poet until you're writing poetry. So that's that. The next part is the connection. Well, it's really part of a healing, right? So when we are expressed and when we are seen and when we create something with truth and authenticity, there is a healing that comes with that. And it could be some kind of catharsis, letting go of something big, but it really is a healing of just letting yourself be who you are and putting it out there into the world. So when we are seen, expressed, and healed through our authentic creativity, we then give that gift of creativity to the world. And when I say the world, I'm not talking Madison Square Garden in the top of the, box office or whatever, although that's a thing too. The world can be just your friends or your people online, or really even just yourself. But when you give the gift of your creativity to the world, it gets even cooler because you become the gift, because you show others that they can be seen, expressed, healed, and connected. Which changes the concept of what creativity and what our work is as creatives in a big way. It's not just like, oh, it's fun to paint. Oh, it's cool to write a poem or a story or something like that. It's like, wow, we are being seen, we are connecting with the world, and we are empowering others to do that. And one of the biggest things I see in the culture and life is people rarely feel seen and understood. And when that happens, you got all kinds of crazy conflict. So art is really a way to heal the world. I'll just say it.
Oh, well, we agree.
This is the shortest podcast ever. We're 10 minutes in, and we're done. Point made.
I really resonated that when I saw that on your website. We have a similar saying in our organization at Hearts Seen Art, that our goal is to help everyone feel seen, heard, and loved, particularly while facing a life-altering health challenge, that there's real, tangible healing power that happens when people feel connected and cared for, that's a powerful medicine. And so when I came across that quote, I was like, oh, we're going to like talking to this guy.
This guy's all right. Let's get him on there.
We'll hang out for a little bit.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
Do you remember like when you made that connection of like, it's more than just being, I want to be a rock star, like that it actually there's power behind writing music. I mean, you do so many things. You write music and you're a filmmaker. You do all of these things. Like, when was that connection made for you? What happened?
Well, I think it was a process. It wasn't a moment. And it was a process in between, so-called successes and failures. For a while, I was doing really well professionally with the music. I had thousands of placements of my music on film and TV. This is quite enviable for, most musicians would, be very psyched about that.
Passive income, right?
Passive income, checks coming in. I'm like, oh my God, okay, it's not touring
Living the life.
Yeah, it's not touring the world and being a rock star, but it was still pretty good. So I got to that point and it was doing well. And I was like, wow, I kind of did my goal, but it's really not that fulfilling. Having my music on the background of TV shows, like, it's cool and it's great. I get to make music, but I'm like, wow, is this really what this is about for me? And I had to really go deep and think about, why am I even making music in the first place? Right? And the music that I was making, or the music that I want to make and have made, is about communicating, just like we're talking about, communicating ideas and emotions and connecting with people and helping others understand both my stories and thoughts and emotions and their own. Because really, at its best, what an artist does is intersect their own experience through their art with the experience or the life of the viewer or the audience. Right? So one of my favorite bands, U2. Right? Loved U2 forever. You guys U2 fans? Right? Yes. Okay, so a couple years ago, I saw this interview with Bono. And this guy has been massively famous his entire adult life. Like, he's just this whole life. So the interviewer asked him, so, you walk out on that stage, you've done it thousands of times, and tens of thousands of people scream and go freaking nuts, right? Every single time. It's like, how does that affect you? What's the deal? And he says, well, when I was younger, I thought they were screaming and cheering for me and for this band, right? But eventually I figured out what they're really doing, whether they know it or not, is cheering for the way this music makes them feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And this is just a focal point at the concert. And I was like, holy shit, this guy, oops, bleep.
It's all good.
I told you, I warned everybody.
This guy is very conscious about what he's doing and how he's experiencing his fame and fortune. And, if you know anything about U2, yeah, they've made a fortune and they're extremely famous, but they've used that fame largely in many ways as a platform for social and political good.
Yeah. I think it's even, well, you were talking earlier, I thought of a quote from an interview that I saw with Bono. So it's funny that you brought him up. He talks about how the arts are revelatory by their very nature. They are revealing. We're taking an internal thought, idea, feeling, and externalizing it in some way. And so when you talk about the arts helping people feel seen, I mean, that's one of the most powerful ways that we can be seen. But I think it's also one of the reasons it can make it so intimidating to engage in the arts for people that maybe are outside of the field or even inside. Even when you are an artist, sometimes you can hit blocks where there's a lot of fear and vulnerability around, expressing your true thoughts and feelings. And it sounds
Yeah, that's Bono. Sorry.
That's Bono. Wow, he heard us.
I'm like, Bono, I'm on the podcast. Sorry.
Way more important.
I got the right link. Give me that.
And I know that you kind of specialize in helping people embrace their creativity and get past their creative blocks. So what would you say to someone who is maybe scared of stepping into that?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing I would say is you're exactly right. Being an authentic artist and putting anything into the world, and even not putting anything into the world, just doing it for yourself takes a lot of courage because it is revelatory if you're doing it right. Mm-hmm. Right? So, what would my suggestion be to people who are sort of struggling with this, besides calling me up for coaching? Well,
You can plug that too.
yeah, that would be that too. The first thing is to do this for yourself. Like, start small. Like create it. If you're writing, let's say, short stories, write a short story and know that you do not have to show this to anyone. Right? In fact, and I've done this with clients, this is classic. They write stories with the intention and the knowledge that when they're done with it, if they choose, they can rip them up and burn them. Right?
There's a lot of freedom in that, right?
Yeah, there's so much power in that.
There's a lot of freedom in it. So you guys familiar with the Buddhist monks who make the mandalas, the sand mandalas?
Yes.
Right? So for the audience, you get a bunch of these Buddhist monks out there somewhere in some monastery, and they take colored sand and they spend weeks making these incredibly intricate mandalas, these shapes and this sort of prayer, I don't know, talisman is probably not the right word, but this focal point, this creative piece. And, they pray on it, they meditate on it, and they do this for weeks. As soon as it's done, they celebrate it and they literally sweep it up. And, as you may know, part of Buddhism is the world is impermanent. So to spend that much time and energy creating something so beautiful and then being willing to destroy it is a powerful spiritual experience for these people.
I want to talk about failure because I love that you talk so much about it and how important it is. And I think as adults, we don't want to do anything that we're not good at because we're adults. And that's, I think, why people don't want to create, because we haven't done it in so long and we don't want to look bad and we don't want to have a bad painting and we don't, we don't want to make a poem that doesn't rhyme because then we'll look crazy. But it's so important to get the bad stuff out of the way. Otherwise, how do you make good stuff? But I like what you do is you fail fast and kick ass faster. We're swearing again. I'm so sorry. But that's partly why I wanted to have you on here, because I felt like I could swear for a little bit.
Sure.
But can you talk about that? How that's important and how you become okay with that?
Sure, absolutely.
What it does for you?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. Nobody likes to fail. However, failure is absolutely an essential ingredient in success. No one on earth. What's that?
I said preach.
Preach, that's right. No one on earth has ever succeeded in everything they've ever done. It's impossible to do. But there's a couple of key pieces here. One is that when you fail, that you very clearly understand the difference between failing at a specific task or endeavor and identifying as a failure. Right? That's a huge difference. And when we create identities that say, I'm a failure, it is going to stop you from moving forward. However, on the other side, if you're like, oh, I failed at this or that, X, Y, Z, then the big question is simply, what can I learn? It's literally that simple. What can I learn? And you just squeeze that and you crunch that in your brain and you think of it from every direction that you possibly can. And then you regroup and you do it again. And you're either going to succeed, fail, or somewhere in between. And then you do it again. And you do it again. And you do it again.
That's called life.
It's called life. And instead of seeing it as failure, you see it, if you change your lens, you can see it as feedback. I didn't fail at this. I got a bunch of good feedback. That's awesome. Right? So much of our lives is based on how we perceive the data, the stimuli, the world. And if you look at the world in ways that are not helpful or useful to you, you're not going to move forward in directions that you choose or directions that you want and do as well as you would like. So much of it is being able to look at the world in ways that are helpful and useful, which is not always positive, but it's useful and helpful.
I love that. And I love that reminder that, I think there's this misconception that kind of floats around in popular culture that this idea about talent. And I think people think of it as like an on-off switch. You either have it or you don't. You either can do the thing or you can't do the thing. I can either draw or I can't, or I can either sing or I can't, but there's this whole thing around skill building that even if you might show an early proclivity to or talent around a particular art form or math or whatever that thing might be, you still at some point have to learn the skills to perform that task at a higher and higher level. And what you're talking about, that feedback loop, is the process we all go through when we're having to build a new skill. I'm a voice teacher, so I've taught many people who have been told that they're tone deaf or can't sing how to sing, because it's a skill building process. Now, they might not all end up singing on a stage at the Met, but they can enjoy their own voice and their own, they can make their own music. And I think that's a really important piece to tease out. Like, just because you feel like you failed or like that you had that, your attempt didn't measure up with your target, that doesn't mean you are a failure. That's, like you said, that's feedback. Okay, next time I can do this differently and get closer to my target. And then next time I can do this differently and get closer to my target. So it's a journey. It's not just an on-off switch, right?
Exactly.
How do you, maybe you answered this question and I was thinking of the question, as someone, because you kept saying it's a journey. So as someone who has reached, and maybe this is a question for both of you, as someone who has reached a certain amount of success, how do you continue to fulfill yourself with the arts? What keeps you going as opposed to just oh, that was fun. I can sit back and watch and listen to my songs on TV shows. Good for me. I'm done here. What keeps you motivated, and what keeps you no, I'm not done yet. I'm not done learning, and I'm not done expressing myself.
For me, I would say it's a combination of curiosity and awe. So when with music, let's just start with, since I'm big on that, I've got the recording software, I've got the guitars, the beats, all these kinds of things, right? But when I'm starting, it's nothing. It's an empty hard drive. And I put my brain and my body and my heart through essentially through this technology. And at the end of the day, which might be 3 weeks later, depending on the song, there is something there that is sort of blows me away. I create something that kind of blows me away, right? And, one of the things that I like to do is sort of time travel that back to my 15-year-old self who was learning to play guitar.
Aww.
And to be like, hey, 15-year-old Jeff, you're trying to pull this off, just get the chords right and listen to this tune, dude, right? Keep on the path and you will be able to create things that are mind-bogglingly, beautiful, to at least to me, right? So, that's kind of what gets me going. And actually, it's another U2 story. Somebody asked Bono, again, like, dude, you're so loaded. Why would you put yourself through touring and promotion and, like, what are you doing? And, like, why are you doing this and when are you going to stop? And he said, I do this because this music still blows my mind and I will stop when it is not. That's it. I mean, the guy's got hundreds of millions of dollars, I'm sure. Right? He's doing it because he likes it.
Yeah.
It's fun. Because
I love that.
Expressing his heart. Yeah. And by the way, as a life coach, we also do exercises shifting the timeline, moving both backwards and forwards, honoring the past and the mistakes or failures, right? And also moving forward to vision what you want in the future.
Yeah. So you practice NLP, right? The neuro-linguistic repatterning. I only know about it because my father's an NLP coach, and it's incredibly powerful work. So I'd love for you to talk about that because it's such a fascinating piece coming from someone like I've had years and years of therapy, and then there's certain things that I'd still get stuck on, and then NLP just kind of clears things out so you can lose the dead weight. Anyway, I asked you to talk about it. Now I'm talking about it, but I'd love for you to share a little bit about that.
So NLP, for people listening here, neuro-linguistic repatterning. It's really a set of tools, psychological tools that help people untangle their subconscious blocks to live better, more interesting, richer lives, right? So in my experience, in my opinion, so much of what we do, what we see, how we perceive the world, all this stuff is not rooted in what we think, but it's rooted in what's going on underneath in the subconscious. And these subconscious ideas about the world and beliefs about ourselves, identities, are very powerful. So if they are positive and useful, that's great. If you subconsciously believe, hey, I'm smart and creative and good looking. Okay, sweet, I'll take that. But if if you've got something running in there that says, the world is overwhelming and I can't do it and I'm not very smart, right? That anything that comes at you is going to go through that filter. You won't even really know it. And then it's going to, affect your entire experience. And then you're going to act upon that. And then you're going to get that life. Right? So as you can see, if you just put input, because basically the world is like, the world's out here. It goes through you. You process it somehow in your brain and body and heart. And then you react to it somehow. And that's sort of the really basic of like what life is. So depending on how you process and how you act is going to significantly change what your life turns out to be. Because if you've got that negative stuff running in your, in your head and your subconscious, even when positive things come to you, you won't attribute them to you. Oh, that was lucky. I don't really deserve that. Things like this. And then, you just shoo them away. You don't take any credit for it. You keep people like to keep the same thought processes that they've been built with, whether they're good for them or not. So in NLP, we go in and we start to explore those things and, change stuff around in there to build new habits of thought, essentially. And, when you practice that, just like practicing anything else, eventually you're going to have automatically more positive, helpful thoughts.
It's powerful stuff. And I think it's so powerful for creatives because again, like our role is to make the invisible visible and to be revelatory. We go first, right? In leading authenticity and to lead people into the still and quiet parts of themselves that so often remain hidden. Like we are leaders in that. That's our role as artists. And if we're blocked and we have those subconscious things that are keeping us from being fully authentically ourselves, then we can't fully operate in that, right? And our world so desperately needs leadership in that area, and that's really our area as creatives. And it sounds like you really specialize in working with creatives, and so I'm curious to see what kind of transformation you see when creatives get unblocked. Like what happens?
Miracles happen.
I was gonna say it's probably a big question.
I mean, first of all, everybody's different, and everyone's starting from different places and going different places. But what typically happens is, as we move through the process, through the coaching, first we assess where someone is, like where they really are, not even where they think they are, which is kind of different sometimes. Then, where do you want to go and why? And the why is huge. And oftentimes people don't even understand what they're doing or why they're doing it. And if you don't know why you're doing something, you're never going to be fully powered from the heart energy, right? You're just going to be chugging along with the body and brain, but there's like the heart is the energy. So we make sure that is aligned. Like, what is it? Like, what is your why? And from there, sometimes people change their direction. Oh, I thought I wanted to do this, but actually I want to do this because this is actually more true to me right now. And of course, these things can change, right? Dynamic humans, and then from there, it's, what is the goal, how to get there, and what's stopping you. And, I work on both the internal and external worlds. So the external world is things like, how do you make a schedule? How do you prioritize? How do you get accountable? Those kinds of things. And the inner world is actually more important. And that is the stuff that we're talking about with the NLP. What are your beliefs? What are your identities? Do you understand your why? Can you really vision your future and move towards it? These kinds of things. When you put these together, and it takes time, of course, to build this, suddenly or not so suddenly, there's change. I've been working with a guy for like a year or something now, and he's part of this job that's awesome is I get people texting me with like illustrations and poems, and I did this and that, as part of that. Awesome. It's pretty awesome, So he just texted me the other day, and he's like, it's taken a while, but I feel like I'm really got this. Like I got it. Like I'm moving forward towards what I want in my life rather than, just like ho-hum. So it's powerful, it's hard, and it's worth it.
When did you decide to to take all of these thoughts and your knowledge and turn it into a book?
I sort of did it by accident. I was, at a Seattle coffee shop. Seattle's big with the coffee. So, this was years ago, whatever. I go to the coffee shop sometimes on the weekend morning and get all amped up on those lattes or whatever and write a poem or think about stuff or write on a screenplay or who knows. And I just wrote something. I was kind of done, and I'm like, this would kind of be a good idea for a book. I know all about this. Why don't I just write a book? So I just wrote it.
Just like that.
Just like that.
I mean, it's not really a great answer, but it's a true answer. I'm largely intuitive in my approach to life, which has huge benefits. And there's a couple of moments where you're like, ooh, it might be a good idea to plan what you're doing or, things like that. So keeping that balance between the head and heart is one of my primary challenges. And, I've come, in the last decade or so to be doing a much better job with that.
So can you talk a little bit about your book and
Sure.
what it is and what it's about and who it's for, all that?
I love the title because it's so not like artsy fartsy. It's like in your face. I love it.
It is completely in your face.
Yes.
Right?
Not effing around.
Not effing around. The no BS guide for getting your creative dreams off the ground. And yeah, it's It is not an academic tome. It is, I mean, there's illustrations and lots of white space. It's basically really powerful ideas in a fun, short, easy to read book.
And who
Very
is it,
cool.
like, who is it for? Like, who would be your audience for that book?
The audience for this book is anyone who wants to be creative and hasn't taken that step, doesn't know how to just start, and anyone who is creative or was creative or is blocked in their creativity. I mean, this thing is really just about empowering creatives to be their authentic self, get over some of these blocks, you know, that we all have in different ways and different forms, and create something, you know, that's meaningful to them, right? To have a life, you know, a life worth living, really. Because a lot of people sometimes, you know, just kind of get stuck in, you know, in their lives without finding the truth or experiencing a real powerful expression of who they are. Because it's, you know, in ways, it's easier. You go to the job and you come home and you have a couple of beers and you watch TV and play video games, right? Well, there's that. I mean, you want to go to your grave like that? Go ahead. But it seems like a waste of time on Earth.
Yeah, I feel like there's so few of us get to, or actually, you know, lean into who we are and what our giftings are, and kind of direct our path. But it sounds like a lot of, maybe some of that comes from the negative self-talk that we have in our heads that are kind of keeping us from that. So I see the synergy in the work that you do. I mean, there's a lot of congruence in, you know, all the things that you do, which is really, really cool. And that's really inspiring. You know, I think people that are living their authentic selves, like you said earlier, they inspire and empower other people to do that, right? Because they see it's possible.
So, yeah, I mean, not everyone can drop the day job and all this and, you know, be a writer full time or go to Broadway and give it a shot or something like that. And that's fine. You know, that's for some people, for some times in our lives, you know, maybe when you're younger or more established and, you know, who knows. But what I do know is that even if you spend 10 minutes a day being creative, it will enrich your life. If you're a photographer, you got a cell phone in your pocket, you know, for 99% of America, the answer is yes, right? Which means, you know what? You can run around and take artsy pictures. Look for beauty in the world, right? I've done, I love doing this when I can get a friend to do it. Tag team haikus, 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. I text it, they text it back, it's done. I do another line, done.
Oh my God, I'm writing this down because this is.
I know, that sounds really fun.
Right?
It's great.
Right? It takes like minutes a day, and you're like, your whole world just kind of brightens up because you're using a different part of yourself.
What do you say? I think a lot of times, especially adults, think that they're not creative, or I'm not a creative. Like, I'm not a writer. I'm not a musician. I don't know how to sing. I can't paint. But even for those people who are bad artists, like, why is it important to start and to have that practice?
Okay, so people often confuse the skills of a certain medium with creativity. Like being able to paint like a master painter, right? Or being able to sing really well, or like all those things. Those are skills. Those are not even creative, right? It's a skill just like, you know, I don't know, cooking or computer programming or whatever. It's just a thing that you practice and you learn and you do. Creativity is a way that you look at the world, experience the world through your own authentic lens, and connect ideas, images, words, sounds, whatever your thing is, movement, in ways that make sense to you. Right? So everyone is creative. Everyone is creating. If you're waking up and breathing, you are creative. You are creating the life that you live. The question is, what do you create? So you can create a painting or a song. That's typically what we think of as creative, but it's creative to start a business. It's creative to walk down the street kind of funny because you're feeling like it.
And it's so true. I went to school for music, and in my music program, we learn a lot of skills, but then it can sometimes feel very robotic and not very creative. And so even I think in the study of a creative practice, just because you can draw well doesn't necessarily mean you're really harnessing that authentic creative expression. And whereas a child who has no skill just does it naturally. So I think the skill can equip us to maybe more fully express ourselves. But if we're not tapping into that authentic creative expressivity within whatever medium we're using, then we're not really reaping the full benefits of that.
Exactly. And I would also say that the skills are not as important as people think. Okay. So here is an example from the music world once again. Okay.
What did Bono say this time?
Exactly. This is a Led Zeppelin and the Sex Pistols story.
Great.
Okay. So Led Zeppelin, all these guys were extraordinary musicians, right? And they made some really rockin' songs, right? High level musicianship. You can feel it like, holy crap. Okay. Then let's turn it way back down to the Sex Pistols. These guys could barely play, right? But they were angry and pissed off, and they had an amplifier and a guitar. And you know what? You listen to the Sex Pistols or the Ramones or something like that, and you're like, wow, I feel that. That communicated to me. It's a different communication, but that's fine because the world needs the Led Zeppelins and we need the punk rockers. We need the people who are screaming, and we need the people who are, angelic voices. Right? The same thing is true in everything. You can draw a stick figure or a masterpiece, right? But as long as it's coming from a powerful place, that the communication will get through.
Can you talk a little bit about your perspective of arts, kind of that difference between arts for yourself versus kind of consuming art, like how we experience art as a consumer in that difference? Just curious in your perspective on that.
So, like we were talking about before, art at its high level is the creator creates something that intersects in some way with the experience of the audience. So when you are the creator, it is your experience and your creation, and you are broadcasting that out into the world. As the audience, and as the audience, it's the opposite, right? But what is powerful in this dynamic is that the audience gets something, experiences something, feels something, articulates or has the articulation of something that they themselves, that is true for them, but they can't necessarily articulate themselves. So like a really super basic example, again, in music might be, oh God, I'm so in love with this person. So you can say, hey, baby, I love you, right? This and that. But there's a love song that like really hits the spot on that. Like if a person can't sing and write that song, play that song, they take that vision and then they experience it in that way.
So there's this level of, so if I hear what you're saying right, there's this skill that us as artists have about articulating what is hard to articulate, right?
Exactly.
So we're articulating kind of the common human experience, and then, people that are consuming art in different forms, different mediums, we're helping them articulate their human experience, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. So yeah, that is basically what it's at. And, to dial it up just a little bit, if I was talking to songwriters who are really going for it, what you really want to do is make these ideas and these emotions both general enough that other people can get it, but also specific enough that it is true to your experience. Okay. So if it's too general, then the lyric is "Baby, baby, I love you." Right? And you're like, okay, I get it, but come on.
Justin Bieber had a very popular song based around those words right there.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and that's why he has a very popular song, because it's so general. Right? The more specific it is, the more narrow the listener, the demographic basically of the listener is going to be. Okay,
but that's not necessarily a bad thing. It sounds like what you're saying.
Well, it depends what you're going for. Justin Bieber is going for mass appeal. It's just like when you make a Hollywood movie. You can't make it that smart. It's got to be who's the bad guy.
What?
No, it's true. I mean, this is no secret. It's like, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? What do they want? How are they going to fight? Good guy's going to win.
Are you hating on my Marvel movies? Oh,
I'm not hating on them. What I'm doing is I'm saying that's a wide, that they're going for a wide audience. If you spend $200 million making a movie, you definitely want that 200 million back, plus as much more as you can get. So if you do, if you spend 200 million making some artsy movie about, I don't know, some totally fringe idea, it's not going to work because not enough people are going to resonate with it. That's what I'm saying. So depending on where you're going and what you want with your music, the level of personal, very specific personal information that you put in there versus the general experience is something that you want to think about.
Yeah, because how many times do you listen to a song and you're like, oh my gosh, that could be my theme song? Like, that person gets me. It's like it was written for me.
Right.
Or this, this fits exactly with the situation I'm in. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's a really well-written song for you, where people who hear it and feel that way. And that's a successful song, in my opinion.
And I feel like that maybe brings us back full circle to this idea of feeling seen, that in making art, we can make ourselves feel seen, but in making authentic expressions of art, we help other people feel seen.
Absolutely.
And connected. Like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person that feels that way.
Exactly. Totally true. So the audience cannot articulate that feeling, right? But then they hear that song or see that movie or read that book or whatever, and they're like, oh, right? Somebody else out there gets this and is talking to me through this song, through this movie, whatever the deal is. And, maybe they feel seen that way, especially if it's popular, right? When I'm just trying to think of a good example of this, but, some idea comes across and there's thousands or millions of other people who are like, oh yeah, I get it. I don't know if I would feel seen, but I would feel that community. Right? Yeah. Which is part of feeling seen, is knowing that there's others like you.
Yeah. Well, it's like you listen to a song and you're like, oh my gosh, this is my song. And then you show up at a concert and 40,000 other people are screaming the same song. And you're like, wait, how do you know the lyrics? That's mine.
And then you find your tribe.
Yeah.
And then they're your people forever.
For me, not you. He just called me to tell me. Yes. Jeff, how can people best connect with you? I mean, I feel like we could sit here for hours and go through every chapter of your book and every blog post. Your blogs are amazing.
Thank you.
Wanted to talk about other things, but I know we're out of time and I don't want to take up your entire evening.
Okay, cool. So the best way to find me is jeffleisawitz.com. There's only one of those floating around on Earth at the moment. And maybe you guys can put that link on your website when you post this thing. One of the, you can also get the book on Amazon if you want the book. And I do free 15-minute consultations, Zoom coaching sessions with anyone who would like. So if this kind of stuff sounds good to you, just go in there and you can sign up and I get to talk to you and we can, up level your creative world and your world in general.
See my name in your inbox soon.
Good. I would love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me. It was really fun.
I loved learning from you.
Very
Yeah.
good. And you guys
started this.
Yeah, and you guys are on a great mission. I love what you're doing. I think it's really powerful and important, and good luck to you, and keep it going.
Thank you.
The book is called Not Effing Around, the No Bullshit Guide for Getting Your Creative Dreams Off the Ground. You can find that on Amazon. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you, guys.
Right. If you need to know anything from today or any episode, make sure you go to heartsneedart.org. Click on the podcast link and it'll take you to everything you need. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Keep creating. Have a good night, day, whatever time you're watching this, listening to this. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Arts for the Health of It, a podcast produced by Hearts Need Art, creative support for patients and caregivers, in partnership with the National Organization for Arts and Health. You can help others learn about the healing power of the arts by subscribing, sharing, and reviewing the podcast wherever you listen or watch. The podcast is hosted by Richard Wilmore, co-hosted by Constanza Rader, and produced by Ivan Briones. Our theme song, Songbird, is written and performed by Natalie Lane. Visit heartsneedart.org to learn how you can support our mission to create joy with people facing life-altering health challenges. Join us next week to learn more ways you can create arts for the health of it. The views expressed on this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Hearts Need Art, their staff, board members, or other affiliates. All content is created for informational purposes only. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice or to diagnose and treat any health condition. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you heard on this podcast.